the number one enemy of free enterprise or let me put it this way, the most dangerous enemy of free enterprise in America today is the big business lobby. It's not the Bolsheviks, the collectivists, whatever you want to call them. It's not Bernie Sanders. He's not the number one enemy today. It's K Street. It is the corporate lobbyists who want handouts and who want regulations to protect them from competitors and who want to make it illegal for us not to buy their product. And the reason they're the most dangerous is because they actually win. That the environmentalists don't get the windmill subsidies or the requirements that we buy ethanol. They don't win those fights if it's just the environmentalists. They need someone, most of the time, powerful on their side who stands to profit from it, and that is very often big business. They are the most dangerous because they confuse and convince the people who otherwise would believe in free enterprise. You've got Republican lawmakers who supported the light bulb law a few years ago admitted, oh, well, usually I don't like regulations like that, but in this case, the light bulb industry admitted, they told me, well, it's fine, so I figured how bad could it be if even industry supports it? Obviously, it makes it illegal for us to buy regular light bulbs, which have lower profit margins and lower costs, and forces us to buy the more expensive ones. So there's no even involved there. But this is a problem. Every time that Republicans, the biggest government things they've done in economic policy have been, in the last 15 years, have all been driven by industry. The bailout is the most obvious one. But you look at their expansion of Medicare in 2003 to include not just the drug companies, but they made sure that it included the private insurance companies too as subsidies. This is always the way it works. The liberals propose some big government thing and the Republicans say, no, how about we just make sure there's a profit-taking middleman in the middle, bipartisanship, everybody's happy, right? Every time that they go ahead and expand government, the light bulb law, the Republicans, it's because they decide, well, this can't really be an offense. I'm giving them benefit of the doubt here. It's because they get fooled into thinking that it's kind of free market because even industry supports it. This is very tough to go against because the same congressmen who go along with it and create this corporatism then profit from it when they become the lobbyists. Think of Trent Lott and John Breaux. Think of Billy Tozan, the Republican congressman who passes a prescription drug bill, who makes sure that government's going to buy and pay as high a price as possible for this, then becomes a top lobbyist for the drug industry, where he then pushes Obamacare, which is full of subsidies, mandates, and regulations that protect the drug industry. How do you beat this? It's daunting. The good news is that the fight against crony capitalism has been taken up. It was taken up after the bailouts in the 2010 election. You had the Tea Party. You had liberty-minded Republicans running against the establishment. The moment that you know the Verizon commercial, "Can you hear me now?" I remember the moment that Rand Paul beat Trey Grayson in the Kentucky primary. I said that. I said, "Can you hear us now, Republican Party? We are sick of the corporatism. We actually want free enterprise." And now it's growing. And the victories aren't big, but they're starting to grow up. The Republican chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, Jeb Hensarling, opposes reauthorizing the Export-Import Bank, which is corporate welfare. Corporate welfare, not just for manufacturers, but for Wall Street. One of the criticisms of Hensarling as financial services chair is, doesn't he know that his job is to raise more money? Why is all the money that he's raising coming from his home state of Texas? He runs financial services. He's supposed to be raising money from New York. In other words, Republicans are upset that the financial services chairman isn't doing Wall Street's bidding. The fight has been taken up. You have Justin Amash got primaried by big business for being too free market, and he won. You have the Republicans going out there on the floor and standing up, and a few of them, a minority of them doing it. And the establishment usually gets its way, especially because they can typically count on the Democrats. But the fact that the fight has been taken up is a new thing. The fact that the fight has been taken up means that in the long run, I think economic liberty has a good chance of overcoming this, because eventually what happens? Politics is not the art of convincing politicians to do the right thing for the right reason. It's getting them to do the right thing for the wrong reason. And nowhere has that been clearer than in the Export-Import Bank fight. The Export-Import Bank was reauthorized in 2012 because of a deal cut by House Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Eric Cantor was beat in his primary this summer because because of corporate welfare. That is what Dave Bratt ran on. He said, this guy belongs to Washington, to Wall Street, and to K Street, and not to Richmond. The #1 donor to Eric Cantor's campaign was not from Virginia. It was Blackstone. It was the financial group up in New York. The #1 donor to Dave Bratt's campaign was Ball Automotive right outside of Richmond. Okay, that's the difference. The cause for liberty is not going to be fought by Blackstone and Goldman. It's going to be fought by Ball Automotive and by regular Americans. And they can win. They can win some of these battles. So you didn't get a libertarian majority leader to replace Eric Cantor. You got Kevin McCarthy, who supported Export-Import Bank in 2012. Kevin McCarthy went on a Sunday show right after Cantor's defeat. He got asked about Export-Import Bank. What did he say? He said, oh, well, I supported it then, but I think time has come for it to expire. We should kill the Export-Import Bank. That is a few thousand voters around Richmond sending very clearly the message and getting the politicians to do the right thing. Are we going to win the Export-Import Bank fight in June? I don't know, but it's a fight now. It used to not be a fight. Under Bush, it was reauthorized by voice vote and by unanimous consent. And now it's a fight, which is great news, by the way, if you want to be a lawyer or lobbyist or consultant working for Boeing or any of these recipients, because they get lots of money to fight to defend it. But it's also great news that it's now an issue, and the politicians get pushed. And the politicians, the leadership aren't the only ones who have to get pushed. The businessmen have to get pushed too. Once I met with a representative of a big company who said, I don't understand, you do this and you give ammo to the left because then they attack us just for pursuing a profit. Don't you worry that you're criticizing business too much? What are you gaining? And at that point, it was a hotel right across the street. And you know how the unions, they hire homeless people to walk and march outside the hotels for not having enough, union workers? Well, what are they doing? They're just trying to make life hard and annoying for the people who run the hotel. They are imposing a social cost for business not following what they think is right. And I said, I think there needs to be a social cost for businesses lobbying for cronyism, businesses that lobby for handouts, businesses that lobby for protection in the form of regulation, businesses that lobby to force me to buy their product. This is something, I don't know if we can, successfully boycott them or anything, but I want them to think, oh no, we could support this policy which is profitable, but think about all the flack we're going to get if we're going to do it. We could support a law that will force people to buy our expensive light bulbs, but is it really worth the headache? The left has applied pressure to businesses and moved them on things, regarding diversity or labor or the environment. I think that the cause of freedom can do that too. Get the leaders to do the right thing because they feel the pressure, and get the businessmen to do it. And this involves something that sometimes some libertarians are afraid to do, which is to talk about business in terms of morality, to say it is simply wrong to pursue profit in a way that doesn't involve the free exchange of goods. Just because it's profitable for you if you support an eminent domain taking of your neighbor's property, and just because it's profitable for your shareholders, that doesn't make it acceptable. Profit does not make morality unless that profit is pursued in the context of free and open commerce. This is something that, yes, the free market people need to get more comfortable talking about. It is right and it is wrong. And to talk about in terms that the average person understands, and to start getting that message out there. To say, it is, if there's a subsidy and you take it, that's not necessarily shameful. I deduct my mortgage on my home, which shouldn't exist, but the government rigged the game. They distorted the market, so I'm taking that. But if they come to me and they say, by the way, Tim, should we renew your subsidy on your house? If I say yes, no. That's wrong. If you wouldn't vote for it as a lawmaker, you shouldn't support it as a business. And if we hold businessmen, if we hold politicians accountable for supporting crony capitalism and government intervention and regulation, we should hold accountable also the businessmen that support it. The fact that they profit from it isn't a defense. It's more of an indictment. Profiting from theft, profiting from regulation, profiting from taking away people's freedom is wrong. And why is it wrong? Well, I think free enterprise promotes virtue. I think that the pursuit of profit in free and open competition, in free and open trade, What that does is that requires you to be honest. It requires you to be hardworking. It requires you to build up friendship and engage in commerce and engage in your community. But once a government gets involved, the opposite is true. It requires being just clever and sneaky and tricky. It requires cronyism. The pursuit of profit when government's involved becomes the stereotype that the anti-capitalist left has of it. And so free enterprise should be extolled because it creates value, because it fosters virtue. Free enterprise should be held up not as just the answer to government or the answer to, collectivism, but free enterprise is the opposite of cronyism. That's how free enterprise can be defended, as long as the cronies get called out. Not just the politicians that vote for the policies, but the companies that hire the lobbyists who then support those policies. If they're going to mandate ethanol and you're going to produce ethanol, that's fine. But then don't go ahead and lobby to keep the mandate. If you need to lobby to be free from government, absolutely. That's your First Amendment right. In fact, that's your duty. But if you're going to lobby to force me to buy your product or to outlaw your smaller competitor or to handicap your bigger competitor, no, nobody who believes in free enterprise should stand by you. In fact, everyone who believes in free enterprise should condemn you if you are pursuing profit. Not only are you increasing government, but you are sullying the name of capitalism. And you are the one, if you support the sort of regulations, those sort of hands, you are the one who is doing damage and giving ammunition to the anti-business left. It's a very hard fight. Thank you. And the enthusiasm makes me feel good because it's a very hard fight, because it's fighting against the powerful. The media thinks that the fight is powerful government versus powerful big business. Sometimes it is. I'm very happy to be with the Chamber of Commerce in pursuing tax reform and much deregulation. But a lot of times, the big guys team up together. That's why my book was called The Big Ripoff, because it's the big guys ripping off the out of power. The small businessman, the consumer, the taxpayer. The businessman who doesn't even exist yet certainly doesn't have a lobbyist. They are all the victims of it. So that's a really hard fight to win. And when both parties and both big business and big government on the same side, it's very hard to win. And for years, there was no ground being won. And now the odds look bleak. The conservatives were not able to win the XM fight this time around. Obamacare is becoming more entrenched because the hospitals on the state level are pushing for the exchanges and the expansions of Medicaid. It's a hard fight to win, but the good news is that we can look around today, and for a change, the fight has finally been taken up. Thank you, guys.